Perfect. Yeah, and you
Okay.
can also pause.
I see that. Okay, perfect. Cool. So let's get started. Thank you, Eileen. All right. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Lightbox panel hosted by DreamWorks. My name is Rabia. I oversee the early career programs and diversity outreach team. And today I have with me a couple of fantabulous people here at DreamWorks, ranging from artists to production to staff writers, etc., all focusing on the theme of finding your focus. And we're going to kind of go around the room and introduce ourselves and then go into and dive deeper into sharing all of your stories and how you found your focus, because all of you have a common thread of shifting, pivoting a little bit in your career, in the discipline, if you're an artist, and in the discipline that you went into, and how you kind of found your focus and what your journey along the way. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I just introduced myself really quickly, but I oversee the early career programs team here at DreamWorks, and that basically is the internship program, our trainee programs, anything related to students and diversity outreach, bringing diversity into the studio. That's my team. So Lightbox is definitely very near and dear to us, and so we're really excited to be able to be a part of it this year virtually. But that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go around the room, maybe alphabetical order. I think that might be the easiest. And share a little bit about who you are, what you're doing at DreamWorks today, and just a very brief intro into what you were doing before, and then we'll go into details later. So I think alphabetically, Chad, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Chad Wilson. I'm the TV story trainee on a as yet unannounced title, hopefully soon. And while I'm a TV focused on story now, I come from motion graphics and game design. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad.
Hello, I'm Krista. I am a visual development trainee, and before that, I was working as a PA on Puss in Boots.
Hi, I'm Liz Chun. I'm currently a staff writer on an unannounced project, and prior to that, I was a production supervisor on Madagascar a Little Wild.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Horst, and I am a character designer on The Mighty Ones. Previously, I was in production for 2 years on Cleopatra in Space, and as well as The Mighty Ones.
Awesome. Thank you guys for introducing yourself. So we are featuring, if you notice, 2 trainees today who are taking part in our trainee program. Both come from very different backgrounds, and came through this program in very different paths. So Chad, I'm going to pick on you for a little bit here, because I think in talking with you, you kind of helped spur this idea of this panel, like the struggles that you faced in terms of how you found the area that you're good in, which is story. And now you're here today as part of the story trainee program, which is definitely very competitive. So kudos to you for getting into the program. And it's definitely a testament to your boarding skills. So
Thank you.
So you can't come from like an art, CG, motion graphics, game design background. Is that correct?
I kind of come from everything. So I graduated high school back in way in the before four times, back in like 1999. And so I went to art school just in time for the. I got a scholarship to go as a for a 2D animation program, and then 3 months after I started that 2D animation program, the program got shut down, and my scholarship kind of went along with that. So I kind of shifted. I kind of had to like kind of pivot in the industry and go more towards CG and things of that nature. And I just couldn't wrap my head around CG at the time. I was fascinated with like, because Toy Story was all hot and everything at the time, and I eventually got to a point to where I wanted to find a way to try and keep my focus in animation, but it was obvious that 2D for the time being wasn't going to be an option. So I kind of pivoted into like kind of like a visual development kind of scenario, which got me a lot of illustration work in order to make ends meet. There's not a lot. I'm originally from Texas, so there's not a whole lot of feature animation work, as you can imagine, down in Houston. So I actually ended up kind of capitalizing on some of my animation knowledge, and I started doing like motion graphics and like video work, and but animation was always kind of like in the background, and so I was always trying to find a way to kind of get back into there, but my heart was still kind of in this kind of like 2D. I love telling stories, I love the acting aspect, I love creating those character moments. But so I kind of tunnel vision down into visual development for a good long while, which got me into like some game design and some post production. So I've done some work for Microsoft, and in kind of like my early career, and then finally it got to the point where it was like, I started realizing that like all of the things that I really loved about 2D animation, I was seeing with all the new forms and pipelines and streaming services and things of that nature, and the rise in TV animation. A lot of the things I loved about 2D animation were actually in story. So a few years ago, I kind of buckled down and I kind of created a new portfolio fresh from scratch, just kind of starting over from zero, and kind of studied everything. And then because I kind of spun out for years, like throwing visual development portfolios out there, and also a very competitive field, and I just wasn't getting any traction. But the moment I switched over to story and I kind of was able to use some of that passion, I ended up getting some of my first job interviews after that. So I was like, it felt right. So, and then a few years later, here I am, right here.
You made it.
Getting stuff. We're here.
That's awesome. Wow, that's crazy story. I mean, starting over from scratch, rebuilding out a new portfolio, that must have been a hard thing to accept, and then like go in and actually work on rebuilding everything. What was the kind of feedback that you got along the way that encouraged you to like, okay, I gotta refocus here, and build out something new and create all new work?
Yeah, I think I had signed up for like a couple of like mentoring courses and stuff like that. I was friends with Chris Oatley, who was a visual development artist at Disney for a while, and he was like a friend and mentor to me kind of early on. And in my discussions with him, I took a couple of visual development courses from him, and it was hard to do. It's not that I couldn't do the work, like I understood like the technical aspects of the work, but it was hard for me to like motivate myself to do. But I would find myself kind of scratching out little stories and stuff like that. And he asked me, he was like, do you want to be doing this? And I was like, I don't know, should I be doing something else? He was like, you should talk to story, you should talk to like a bunch of story guys. So I started basically stalking some of my kind of go-to people. I think the thing that kind of kicked it over was I was told to stalk people whose career I wanted to emulate. And so I was looking at like I was looking at Kelly Asbury. I was looking at Rebecca Sugar. I was looking at Alex Hirsch, and I was, and all of them from the beginning, they all came from story. Like it was the universal thread, and everybody whose career I really admired. And so I was just like, oh no, I have to start over. And then, but it was kind of one of those like but it was almost like it was reframed for me by another mentor who said, no, you get to start over. And that was something that kind of helped me keep the momentum to build something brand new from scratch.
I love that. It's all about like shifting your perspective, right? Like you get to start over. That's really powerful. I love that. So that was your aha moment. That's really, really inspiring. And yeah, it seems like you had some good people standing behind you and helping you show your true potential and identifying what that is and encouraging you to like follow that path. Sorry if you can hear my kid crying. I might have to go grab him in a second. But tell me a little bit about, let me choose Krista. So let's focus on you for a second. What was your aha moment when you went from, remind us again in terms of the path that you took, and then the aha moment that you found out like, okay, I need to pursue this path within DreamWorks's like trainee program in art. This is what I need to do. This is how I'm going to get there. What was that aha moment for you?
Well, about my path, I went to school in Brooklyn, New York at Pratt Institute, and I studied 2D animation also. While I was there, I did a study abroad. So I also studied animation at Musashino Art University in Tokyo. And then after that, I was able to do like a summer internship at Cartoon Network as a production intern. So I had always been interested in working in TV. I'm not specifically in production, but like I thought that was a good way to like get experience and learn about the pipeline. And I was interested in starting in production if that could get me like a foot in the door. So after I graduated, I moved back to my hometown, which was in Buffalo, New York, but there's not really anything there for people who are interested in animation. So I ended up moving out to LA, and I was kind of just doing like freelance work and working part-time, and then submitting my short film from school into festivals and stuff. And through one of the festivals that I ended up winning, that was actually also at Cartoon Network, I was able to like talk to a producer that worked in the industry, like do a phone chat with them. So from that, I kind of kept in touch with her, and she became like a mentor to me. And she was the one who let me know that there was a position that had opened up at DreamWorks for an admin assistant. So I ended up applying for that and interviewing for that. And thankfully I got it. So I did that for like 5 or 6 months, being like the assistant to the producer and the director and doing like all the calendar and scheduling stuff. But I would always let everyone know like, hey, I'm an artist, like I'm interested in art. So like everyone knew that. And then after the temp position kind of ran out, I was like, hey, if there are any production roles like in the art department, I would be really interested in that. So I ended up moving over to a PA in the art department, which was really cool because I didn't know anything about feature at all. So I got to see how that kind of works and figure out the pipeline. And then also just like seeing all of the work from all of the amazing artists every week and going to every director review and the rounds and everything. It's like kind of like a master class. Like I'm working, but I'm also learning at the same time. And then, yeah, when the trainee program opened up, I kind of just let, Angela and everyone know that I would be applying for it. And I ended up getting it. So that was great.
That's awesome. That's very cool, but also very, very inspirational. Sounds like you did a lot of like advocating for yourself, making sure people knew like, hey, this is what I'm interested in. Let me know if there's any opportunities that come up. I love that. There's also this common theme of like mentorships, and both you and Chad mentioned this as well. I'm gonna grab my kid because he is crying, so that's a work from home life for you. While I do that, please share. I'll leave you with a question. When it came to, I think this is really powerful, which I think a lot of people who are early in their careers don't know how to do or don't do it at all, which is speaking up for yourself, advocating for yourself, or finding an advocate for you to speak to advocate for you in the room when you're not there. How did you navigate that in terms of like being, you had your foot in the door at the studio, but you were in production, you were a PA, but you really wanted to go into this training program and thought like, okay, this is the next step for me. How do I get there? Who do I need to talk to? Who needs to know that this is what I want to do? How did you navigate that? I'll leave you with that, and I'm gonna grab my kid really quick.
Cool. For me, I'm not like a super outspoken person. So I would kind of just like be like here and there, like, oh, like my temp position's ending soon. Like if there's anything opening up, let me know, like I'm interested. And I would kind of try to get like coffee chats with the people that worked in production in the art department. And then when there were opportunities like the gallery shows at the studio, I would like submit artwork for that. And I would just email my crew and say, hey guys, like just so you know, like I have something in the show, if you like check it out or whatever. And I think I was also just really lucky that the people on my crew were really kind and like supportive. And so they would advocate for me as well. Like my mentor was the producer on the show. So like, I'm sure she had a lot of conversations behind closed doors, like, hey, Chris is here, like she can help us out if we need someone kind of thing. And then also my art director was like really supportive and giving me opportunities, even when I was a PA, to do like some design work and stuff and giving me feedback on that. So I think I was really lucky to be surrounded by like really nice people for sure.
I mean, it's a great testament to DreamWorks, right? Like the people here are just so awesome and so willing to say yes and help you when you ask for it. So that's great. And I may have missed this and I apologize, but can you share, if you haven't already, about like how you got to identifying that mentor? Was that like a specifically like a conversation that you had, like, hey, can you please help me out in these areas and looking for a mentor, or did it happen organically, or what was that process like for you?
Yeah, I was lucky that my mentor, who I had met like from the film competition, was actually the producer on Puss in Boots. So like she was there advocating for me, and then like my art director was an advocate for me once I let him know that I was also interested. And he would chat with Latifa and stuff, my mentor. So they would chat about it. And then there's also like an artist on my show, Claire Keene, who was like a mentor to me, who just took an interest and like wanted to support me and like build me up. So yeah.
That's great. So you found these really awesome people along the way and built those relationships. That's great. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to pivot to Nicole and have you share a little bit about your story. Also started out in production and a newly minted character designer, which is super awesome and good for you. I know we were talking about this in our meeting the other day about how this is a very new role for you. So the perfect timing to do this talk. Tell us a little bit more about that journey and how that happened for you.
Sure. So really, I would say like finding my focus really started back in high school. My senior year of high school, truth be told, I didn't do so great in school. I was actually failing to the point where I had to take all remedial classes my senior year. But I actually got to go to like this trade school to take extra credits. And I got to choose any class I wanted, and they had an animation class. So I was like, done deal. Already loved art as a hobby. And that really sealed the deal for me. Like, okay, this is awesome. I love doing animation. Not so much the animation part, but I loved making characters at the time. So I was like, I got to do more of this. This is awesome. And after that, I went to community college, got my grades up, transferred to Cal State Fullerton. And there I studied entertainment art and animation. And that's really where I got to draw a lot more characters. I got to do expression sheets. And that's really where like I fully grasped that, cool, I could be a character designer as a career. Like, this is possible. So that's completely what I focused on. Built up a portfolio, went to lots of art events similar to Lightbox. And in my senior year of Cal State Fullerton, I landed a internship at Nickelodeon on SpongeBob SquarePants in production. That was amazing, such a fun time. And that's really where I learned about production at first, and thought this is also a really fun route if for whatever reason art doesn't work out. So after graduating, I went home because I also just recently got engaged at the time. So I was wedding planning back home in San Jose. And I was kind of trying to decide, okay, do I stay home and apply for jobs, or should I go back to LA? And I was applying for jobs for about a year or so in art, and they weren't anything that were like really related to characters. So it just didn't end up working out. And so eventually I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll just apply for a DreamWorks production role. We'll see if I get it. Probably won't. But I ended up actually doing 3 interviews, which was awesome. So I was flying back and forth for a while, and I was like, okay, this is, if I don't get any bite on the 3rd interview, I'm probably not going to fly back anymore. And luckily enough, 3rd interview was Cleopatra in Space and the Mighty Ones. So I got to toggle between the 2. Cleopatra in Space actually needed some help wrapping up their show, so I was with them for a couple months. And then I was with the Mighty Ones for 2 years in production. So went from PA, PC, and then a lot of people knew that I wanted to be an artist because we would talk at lunch and stuff, and I have an Instagram and be like, hey, follow me on Instagram. And they're like, cool, this is awesome. And they're like, you really want to be an artist, don't you? And I'm like, yes. So had a lot of advocates there that were encouraging me, like, Nicole, you should totally go into design soon. I'm like, yeah, working on it. I'd love to. And my art director, as we were staffing up, she mentioned to me, she's like, hey, you should test for character design. And I was like, I would love to. And lucky enough, I got it. So here I am.
That's awesome. Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's very inspiring. I think to a lot of people will resonate. Your story will resonate with a lot of folks here who are hopefully watching this this panel. So when it comes to, also, I think you mentioned things about like sharing your work, talking about what you're passionate about, showing, you got people to notice the art director on your show, etc. There's this theme coming up of like branding yourself, right? Sharing out your social media, your Instagram, your work, sharing out your portfolio, making sure the right people are, here we have a CTM department, creative talent management, who kind of helps people shift and put them in on the shows that are the best fit for them, doing practice tests, etc. Any advice that you could share with somebody who is watching right now, who is in production? And this question could go to Krista as well. I know you're in production. and Liz. Liz, we haven't gotten to you yet. I haven't forgotten about you. But any piece of advice that any of you could share to somebody who's sitting in production right now, who knows, like, you know, I really want to get into design, or I really want to get into story. I'm going to stick it out with production. I do like it, but ultimately it's not where I want to be, you know, 5 years from now. What would you say to that person?
For sure. That's a great question. I also got that a lot as well. I would say really trust your gut. Like if you're feeling like comfortable in production, I think, yeah, if you want to continue that route, you should. But if there's something telling you like, hey, I should try art, like this is something I've always wanted to do, which is the position I was really in. I was kind of conflicted for a little bit. I was just thinking like, if I don't do it, I'll never know. So I didn't have any regrets. So like you said, creative talent management at DreamWorks is amazing, and they talk to me all the time, and they were helping me like realize other opportunities, like there's openings in art that I could potentially apply for. So I would say just like reach out to anybody that you feel comfortable telling, hey, I want to be an artist, or I want to do story, or I want to do writing. Anybody who you feel could advocate for you and help you look further into those roles is super helpful.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Does anybody else have anything to add before we move on?
I would just second that. Like to let everyone know that you can like make sure that they know like what your intentions are and what you like really want to aspire to do. And then also I would say like even just having them check out your work, or saying like, hey, is there any kind of like mock assignments or things that you can give me, or something that you would recommend like for me to add to my portfolio kind of thing. And I think like if people see that you're putting in like the extra effort and time, like they really want to give you an opportunity kind of thing.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Liz?
I agree with everything everyone said. And I think what was really helpful for me at one point too was that I also have many mentor figures, but one of them kind of asked me when I was waffling. I was in production for a while, so I didn't know if I wanted to make that leap, but I was curious about other things. And she asked me and was like, okay, say 2 years from now, you get promoted, you take that promotion. Do you think you're still going to be wondering what it would be like if you had turned down like those opportunities and tried something else? And I thought about it, and I think I was still going to be curious, because I'd kind of been staving off curiosity for a while too. And I think sometimes, kind of like what Nicole was saying about like, it's your gut feeling, like if you keep having this itch that you feel like you want to scratch, sometimes it's worth just pursuing that. And, you know, it might not work out, or you might try it and be like, actually, I didn't want to scratch that after all. But like, I know like time only moves forward, but like careers aren't like that. And you can jump around, you can move backwards. Like you can be like, maybe I don't want to do production, try something else. And then be like, actually, I do still want to do production, because I know people who have like moved back and forth too. And so I think it all seems really scary and daunting in the moment, especially because like, you know, when you're finding things out and stuff, you feel like you're making these like decisions that do change your life, and they do, but like you can continue to make decisions that change your life endlessly. So like nothing's ever really set in stone.
So moral of the story, if you're curious, make sure that you go and do what you can to scratch that itch and see if it works out. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Awesome. Well, Liz, we haven't gotten to your story in detail. So you were in production, and now you are a staff writer. So you've gone into writing, which is such a coveted job, by the way. So congrats on making your way into that. Yes, applause for Liz.
Thank you.
I think everybody wants to be a writer at some point. So let's hear a little bit about your story and where you started from and what you're doing today.
Yeah, I think I misleadingly made it sound like I was like my last job was production supervisor, and then I jumped into being a staff writer. I just skipped all the steps after I switched like career paths. So like there was stuff in between, but I kind of also like grew up with a really big passion for animation. I like, you know, cartoons and anime. So I kind of decided to go to college for arts. I went to school at RISD, it was a lot of fun. And I'd say it's not like a super industry geared school in that it's not like they really hash out like a ton of like, what are the different departments at an animation studio and stuff like that. It's kind of just like, be furry, make animation. And it was really fun. And I think it was good for me because it was my first time even trying that stuff. So I was like, I'm learning so much. But I got an internship at Nickelodeon, and that's when I was kind of introduced to the pipelines of animation while I was in school. But there were so many things and everything seemed so cool that I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And I graduated still with that feeling of like, I don't know what I want to do, but it's all cool. And luckily, like the connections I made at Nickelodeon and one of the supervisors I had there, I worked at like a studio called Frederator for a while, and that was really nice because I interned there and they let me get a job out here directly after graduating. So like, I know it's hard sometimes to make that jump to California, but it was really helpful. So I moved out here, and then the connections from Nickelodeon actually, I like made my way to DreamWorks as a PA eventually. And I really fell in love with production because, especially for someone who didn't really know what they wanted to do, like you get to interact with every department and you get to talk to everyone all the time. And it's like, oh, can you go ask the art director this? So you hear about designs, or like, oh, can you go ask like the story supervisor this? So you hear about boards and stuff. And I think I just fell in love with the people and my team so much, and that interactivity that I was like, I'm going to stay in production. I really, really like it. And so I kind of continued on that path until I hit production supervisor, and I was still really loving it and things. But I think when like it kind of started to be like, oh, eventually I'm going to hit production manager, and like I'm going to be kind of like managing like things that are like a little less on the ground sometimes, and things like that. And I realized like the track I was on kind of took me off of like what I really, really loved doing, was just talking a lot with people. So, and not to say like PMs and stuff don't, and like LPs don't do that. Like my LPs and PMs, like I talked about mentors a lot. Most of my initial mentors were my really amazing LPs, and they taught me a lot about life. And even like when I thought about making the transition, one of my LPs was saying like, what makes you so nervous? Are you scared? And I was like, I'm a little scared. And she was like, don't ever let being scared of something stop you from doing it. So she actually really encouraged me to make that jump. So but yeah, they talk to people all the time, but I think I mean more like casually, like blabbering a lot over coffee. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna not be able to do that as much. So, and I miss creative work a lot, and I love stories always. So like part of my favorite parts of like production was when I got to read scripts for like breakdowns, or when I got to watch the animatics and I was like, oh, look at it all coming together. So I kind of was like, I got like DreamWorks is really great. They have a pitch program that's open to anyone. So there was a point where I was like, I really like story and I want to try pitching something. So I put together a little packet, and there was a writer I had met on my first show at DreamWorks Spirit. And she was really talented. I loved her work, and she was always really nice. So I reached out to her to just be like, oh, I'd love, your feedback and to hear any thoughts you might have if you have time. And she took the time, read it, and was like, oh, like, I actually think you're good at this. And like, if you ever wanted to try writing a pilot script, like, I would love to like read it for you. Or like, if you need a mentor figure, or if you're interested in seriously going into writing, like, I am totally down to help you. And I was curious enough that I did want to try writing a pilot script. So I tried it, and I was like, this is awesome. So I kind of went there, and then it was that daunting thing of like, oh, I have to tell people I want to completely change what I want to do in life, even my parents, which is always a little scary, but they're really supportive. But I told my LP, and she gave me the advice I mentioned about like fear. And I told Joyce Dabney, in creative talent management. So I think they're coming up a lot, but she was also really supportive and told me kind of the steps I would need to sort of make that transition at DreamWorks, and like how other people before me had made that transition from production to writing. And so I kind of got to work on that. And coincidentally, luckily, Trollstopia needed a script coordinator a little bit after I had like cleaned up my pilot sample and sent it out to the team. And I landed an interview with them, got that job, did like one other script coordinating job, and then actually through the mentor I mentioned, like I ended up then getting a staff writing job back at DreamWorks. So then I came back here again, and it's been really great. It's been a great experience.
That is, what an insane ride. That is so cool. Good for you. That's awesome. I love that piece of advice that you got. Say it one more time.
Oh, my line producer mentor, Mercedes, she told me if what was stopping me from ever making a change or a jump was like fear, she was like, don't ever let fear be what stops you from doing things that you want to try or do. And that's been, I think, a really good piece of advice in general moving forward.
Yeah,
and everything. So
absolutely. Love Mercedes. Could totally see her saying that. So I love that piece of advice. And I think that is something that we can't ignore, especially when talking about a topic like this, when you're like finding your focus or changing your focus, changing your career path. That's not easy. And then having those conversations with people where you're like saying it out loud for the first time, like, hey, can I sit down and talk with you? I am going through some things right now, and I just need a sounding board of, is what I'm doing. Does that make sense? Should I go for it? What should I do? Like, even just saying it out loud for the first time is very scary, right? And so having those conversations is just like the first step. So I love that you shared that piece. And then fear obviously has a huge part to play. And I'm sure it has stopped many people from moving towards the career path that they ultimately really, really wanted to do. And maybe they just stuck it out in whatever they're doing in production or whatever it is. But yeah, I absolutely love that. So thank you so much for sharing. And so now that you're in the role that you're in today, it seems like production was a great path for you too, but how does that compare in terms of your day-to-day and your level of happiness, like just overall, like, the balance, the work-life balance, your mental health, like, just the day-to-day, how does that compare with what you're doing today? Was it worth it? Was it all that you thought it would be? Share that with us.
Yeah, I think it was really worth it. And like, I think, and like, I wouldn't ever say either that I'm like, oh, I'd never go back to production or something, because I did really enjoy it and I really loved it. But I think part of my reason for loving production was dependent on the people around me and the people that I was working with. So like my joy from production came from like other people and my interactions with them and things like that. And not that I didn't enjoy the work, but it wasn't really my passion. So it was very variable. So like in my head, I was like, oh, if I ever land on a crew that someone is really mean, or like, it's really crazy or something. Cause I know there are shows like out there, though I've never been on one, but I was like, if I ever land on a show like that, I don't think I will like this job anymore. And I don't think I would be passionate enough about the work to feel happy or like keep going. Like, I think I would be really upset. And I think with writing, like the work itself, I'm really passionate about. I love learning more about writing. Like I get notes or feedback and it's like, maybe you should do this. And like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, like I'm like, you gotta tell me more. Like, yeah, tell me what I should do. Like I want to keep learning. So I think, and I still get to work with really awesome people, like writing. And I do sometimes miss like all the different departments and talking to so many people, but I think then like the passion for work helps tide me over on that. And I feel like there's just like a lot of excitement in learning the new things that I learn every day. And there's excitement in the failures and there's excitement in the successes. And it's not dependent on other people. It is like kind of more my self drive, I guess.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you for sharing. I love that. I love how you put it. Very well said. So I want to focus a little bit about towards the artists in the room. Tell us a little bit about, this is for anyone, and we have about, I'd say, 10 minutes left, 12 minutes left. So I just want to open it up to people in the room. In terms of, as you were shifting your focus, you also had to shift your work, your portfolio, your branding, what you were posting on social media to brand yourself and get your work out there. What was that experience like for you to feel like, I know some of you mentioned you had to start all over again, which was probably a very tough thing to do, or accept feedback from people where, sometimes it's very difficult accepting feedback and making changes to your work, to your portfolio, or you're working, doing a full-time job, but then on the side, you're actually working on your portfolio to get to your dream job. I think I touched upon a lot of the things that each of you have mentioned. So if anybody wants to jump in and chime in on how, like, stepping over those hurdles at first, because I think one of the key skills is taking and accepting feedback. Just to mention one of those challenges, but yeah, anyone can chime in here and share a little bit about that experience. Sorry, my baby is making a ton of noise. I might just mute myself.
I'll just join in. Yeah, it's super interesting because like for me, like I think I got into as I was trying to discover things and kind of rediscover like my love for animation, I kind of lost like a love for drawing. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there's a lot of drawing in animation, like 24 of them per second. And so I kind of got into a point and I think that's one of the things that really pushed me towards like visual development, was this kind of like, I kind of lost that passion for drawing, and kind of the mediocrity of kind of everything I was kind of spinning in at the time. And so like, I think one of the things I had to do was I read a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. And it kind of talks about, basically the idea is that like you don't do something because you're passionate about it. You're good at something and then you become passionate about it. So he's like, you can approach this from like two different ways. And so like I got to a point to where like I really didn't like drawing, but I was like, this is an essential aspect of my job. It's it's like a hammer. It's the hammer that I use to build all of this stuff. So I actually had to like kind of work on that and kind of readjust my like perspective when it came to like what is important in the job and what I have to do to be able to perform and be competitive, in the industry. And so I took a lot of time whenever I was shifting to go back and focus on fundamentals. I did life drawing every day for 90 days, kind of thing. And then I kept it up like 3 to 4 times a week after that. And it was amazing how much more confident I was after that to be able to draw a character feeling things and stuff like that. So I think that was kind of one of the things that really kind of helped me with my new portfolio, was building the confidence in like my craft. And so like I think that's a super important aspect that a lot of people kind of neglect, because they're so awesome. They're so we're always so, we see these like fantastic end results and we don't see the kind of like the the stone cutter aspect that really builds this aspect from the ground up. So that was a big shift for me whenever it came to building a new portfolio, was relearning like what is the craft and what do you have to do to be really good at it and be competitive.
Yeah, definitely, Chad. I resonate with a lot of that. Similarly, when I was in school, it was so easy to just focus solely on art, build a portfolio, and then going into work as in production, a lot of my time was busy. Like I was working all day. I'd come home and be like, I don't want to draw something. But at the same time, animation production did inspire me too, where I would see all these designers turning in awesome stuff, and I was like, all right, I need to like get in the mood where, okay, I know I've been working all day, but I gotta at least draw something, just to like have something for myself, essentially, because a lot like Liz was saying, I had an itch I needed to scratch. So yeah, I was doing a lot of work for myself just to kind of also test to see like if I were in an art position and I was in a lot of stress or under a lot of stress, if I could still enjoy drawing, still produce work for myself. So I feel like that was really helpful to kind of test myself, because TV, the schedule's really fast, where people are spitting out art super fast, and knowing myself, I wasn't very speedy. So like, all right, I just want to make sure that I'm still drawing. I still love drawing. So that was an important practice for me, was keeping up the art muscle, so I could know confidently that I could come into the role.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Like working all day on your computer and then getting off of work and drawing on your computer is really hard. But I did find like when I didn't do that, I felt like Nicole was saying, like there wasn't as much time for like me and like what I wanted to do. So even though it was difficult, like it was really rewarding when you did spend that time, even if it was just like, like 20 minutes here, like 30 minutes there, just fitting it in kind of where you can, I think was really helpful. And then also just trying to implement some of the stuff you learn from being in production at work, like into your own work, and trying to improve your portfolio that way too.
Yeah, I like really agree with what everyone is saying. And I think like we're kind of talking too about like, oh, like it's hard to find the time and stuff. And I think I really want to just encourage people that like sometimes getting started is like the most daunting step. Like I talk to a lot of people who write and stuff, and it's like, oh, I have to start this script. And then 2 months later, we'll still kind of be like, oh, I have to start this script. And it's like sometimes just taking that step of starting it is so like, for some reason it's so difficult. And I think it's because once you start it, you have to keep working on it, you have to finish it, you have to think about it, you have like that potential failure, have potential success, like a lot rides on like starting something. But I think if you don't start it, like nothing's gonna happen and you're basically just in like a time limbo. And I'd really just like encourage people, like if there's something you think you want to do and you've been telling yourself like, oh, I'm gonna do that for like the past like 3 months or something, is like if you start it, you'll like finish it. And even like finishing, I think too, like there's something really scary about starting to show people your work. Like when I wrote that first pilot script, I think I sat on it for like a couple weeks before I like mustered up the energy to email someone and be like, can you read this? Because I'm like, oh, like I feel like if they say it's like a disaster, I'm gonna be so emotionally like distraught or something. But I think the more you do those things and the more you like try them, get out there and like muster up the energy, like it becomes like a lot easier. And even now if I send something and someone's like, this really isn't it, I'm like, okay, like whereas before I'd be like, wow, this is like killing me. So I think too, it's so hard sometimes as a creative person to feel satisfied in your own work and to say like, hey, this portfolio piece is good enough, it's good, like I can show it to people now, it's solid, I can stop touching it, like this script I wrote, I think it's good. Like it's so hard to, at least for me, like to hit a point where I'm like, it's good enough to show people, because it never feels good enough. But like we're all still learning and we're growing, and nothing is ever gonna be perfect. So, you know, like try to hit a point where you're comfortable with it. Like, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be good enough. Like if you don't submit it and you're not even in the pool of applicants for that position, you will 100% not get it. But at least if you submit something, you have like a chance. So just like send it, just do it.
100% agree. I think as a recruiter, I'm constantly telling the same thing to students that I'm talking to and et cetera. So I love that. So some common themes that I found are key takeaways from this conversation is building confidence in your craft, not letting fear get in the way of your desired career path, your happiness, etc. Scratching that itch. And as we have 1 minute left here, any other pieces of advice that you want to leave your viewers with?
I would say, kind of still going off of the last question we had, I've had a lot of students and fellow people at DreamWorks talk to me with coffee chats, and they're also kind of on that same level that we were all at once before, where they were thinking about shifting their focus and wasn't sure where they should stay or if they should go into art. And a lot of people were so worried about having a perfect portfolio, having just like the perfect qualifications. And a lot of the time I tell people, like, just give yourself some grace. Everything will fall into place. Like, don't rush yourself. Because I think it's really important to still just focus on knowing yourself and who you are as an artist or whichever career path you want to take. So I just feel like that's important for people to know, that it's not a race to the finish. Everybody has a different journey, and you'll get there when it's meant to be.
Yes, there is no race. You're only competing against yourself, and that's it. Perfect.
Oh,
Liz, it looks like you want to say something.
Sorry, I'll just end. I feel like just listening to all of our stories, I feel like all of us were able to get where we are because there's a lot of also really kind people in animation, and there's like a lot of really kind people around us. So I would just like really, I think it is really good, and it's like the best possible path if when you move forward in this career or when you move forward in what you want to do, that you are also kind to others. Because that's what's really going to make your life easier, and what's really going to boost you is the kindness of others. So like always try to pay that forward, I think. So
100%. I think the parting words of wisdom that I always leave our class of interns with is do good work and be good to work with. I think those are the two philosophies that anyone and everyone should live by, especially if they want to succeed in this industry. All right. Well, with that, Chad, I saw you were unmuting yourself a few times. I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to say, like, as far as like finding your focus, like something somebody asked me was like, if you could do anything and failure was not even in the equation, if you could do anything and you knew for a fact you wouldn't fail at it, what would you do? And not necessarily that you have to do that thing, but that's a pretty good North Star for something that will carry you through all of the kind of ups and downs in the career. Yeah.
Totally agree. Yep. That's a perfect way of putting it, and a perfect way to end this talk. So thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your vulnerabilities with everybody. I think this was such an inspirational talk, and I hope that after this, we have some Lightbox attendees reaching out to you. You're more than welcome to reach out to me as well on LinkedIn, and please follow us on DreamWorks animation on LinkedIn. I think it's DreamWorks Careers on Instagram and DreamWorks Jobs on Twitter. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you bearing with me and this future dream worker here. So with that, we will call it a day. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabia.
Thank you. Thanks, Rabia.
Thanks everyone for
Bye,
listening.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.